Good evening and welcome to Slam the Gavel, the show that tells it all regarding family court, criminal court, and other court issues, as well as CPS. I am your host, Maryann Petri. You can find me, my books, and blogs on dismantlingfamilycourtcorruption.com. They are in audio as well. And if you have a tale to tell, you're welcome to contact me at dismantlingfamilycourtcorruption.com. I have a brand new guest on. I have Nick Andersen. He is an adult child of alienation. We're going to discuss that. He's also in family court litigation that's been ongoing with very much legal abuse noted. And he's got a 16-year-old with an ex-wife and a 2-year-old with a baby mama. And this legal abuse has been going on for quite a bit. I'm going to let him tell his story, and I welcome you, Nick, to the podcast.
Hey, how you doing?
Okay, how are you?
I'm good, thanks. Before we start, I want to be very clear that I'm have ongoing court matters, so everything I share today is based only on my personal experiences and public documents. I'm not making any accusations against any individual. I'm speaking about the process, the system, and how certain actions have affected me as a parent. I'm committed to letting the courts make the final decisions.
Hmm. Hmm. Well, tell me a little bit about you when you were growing up and you didn't know your dad.
What I remember from that time, I remember my dad coming to visit me. We had a park across the street, and him and my sister from his side would come and visit me at the park. So he was on supervised visitation at the time. And I had no idea why or anything as a kid. I was raised by boomers, and they were brought up to hold everything in. We don't talk about the problems or things like that. So I honestly didn't find anything out until my 40s.
Mm.
But my mom always spoke very badly of him ever since I was a young child, said that he was an angry guy, and that he was abusive. She always complained about he never paid enough child support. Basically all the things that they tell you in parenting classes not to do.
Right.
um, my mom did all of it. And she made me fear him all my life, and so I always felt some kind of way. I had a big family over there. He had th- two other prior wives than my stepmom, and I
Mm.
had two brothers and two sisters, and then two stepsisters on his side. And they were all very close. We always did family stuff. My brothers and sisters always came to see my dad. My dad was a very quiet guy. He was a war vet. He was in the Korean War. Was
Oh.
wounded in combat. So he suffered from PTSD.
Mm.
He was on lithium for a lot of his life. That's eventually what killed him in the end.
Oh.
But yeah, he was always very funny. When he did talk, he was always very nice. I never heard him raise his voice to my stepmom, not once. I don't even think I ever heard them argue when I think about it.
Mm.
And she was 22 years younger than him.
Mm.
Um, but yeah, so I never saw this guy that my mom talked about, but because she was my mom and my primary caretaker, if you want to call her that. I mean, she wasn't around very much, um, but yeah, my stepsisters, they had a good life. They went to, my stepmom was big in the church. My dad was he went into law enforcement after the military, and he was much older, so he was retired pretty
Mm.
much when I was, in elementary school. And so he was home all the time. He was available and there that he could have been there with me all day. And my mom was gone working all week during the day. Then she would go out 3 nights a week. And my dad eventually got custody of me every weekend,
Mm.
which now as a parent, I think is very odd for a mother to not at least want one weekend with her child.
Mm. Mm.
So that was the custody that we grew up with. My dad always paid child support. Since I've started learning about all this, I've noticed he's not listed on my birth certificate, and that's because it fits with the story that my mom told the hospital that he wasn't in the picture.
Mm.
And stories that I've gotten, I've talked to all my siblings are much older than me. I'm the baby.
Mm.
So the closest one in age is like 10 years older,
Mm.
and then they all go up after that. I've got siblings that are retired. Um, But yeah, my family on my dad's side, they all loved him. I mean, they still talk about him, they still praise him,
Hmm.
and my brother and sister on my mom's side, I mean, it's they almost want nothing to do with her. My brother doesn't even call her on Mother's Day, and I never understood why as we were growing up. And he was always very flaky when it came to her, and I just thought he was flaky. But now that I'm realizing he's cutting himself of the toxicity, and
Right.
he's told me this now as we've gotten older, because I've asked him, why don't you come around to Florida more often? And he's in Wisconsin
Hmm.
and visit mom, and he tried to stay out of the BS, and
Hmm.
so my sister always, I guess, kind of wanted my mom, as a kid, she was left raising me for a period of time until she left and went to live with her dad. But I think she was craving my mom's attention so badly then. And now she's getting it because my brother and I are out of the picture. So she's the only child,
Hmm.
So she's embracing this part. So my mom has my sister, but other than that, she's chased away all of her friends, that she's had for years. And
Hmm.
so it's
That's
my dad would have
bad.
oh yeah, it's like the writing was on the wall the whole time.
Hmm.
And I don't know why I never really cared to pay attention. But um my dad every year would have a Christmas Eve party, and his two ex-wives, former, would show up every year with my stepmom.
Hmm.
My mom is the only one that never came.
Hmm.
And she would always bash my stepmom also, to me. And can make comments like, "Oh, she calls herself a Christian," and da da
Hmm.
da. Let me tell you, my mom's, she's never brought us into church, not once.
Hmm.
But she throws that Christian card around too. But then she does all these horrible things. But my stepmom was more of a mom to me than she was.
Hmm.
Like my mom kept me from my dad. She had my grandfather raising me at one time. She had my sister raising me. All these other people raised me that weren't. They loved me, but I could never build an attachment to anybody. So I got into an adulthood. I've had a lot of attachment issues in relationships, which I've now worked through with therapy. But um, I kept wondering why I was choosing all these toxic women. And they were, my mom was very chaotic, always scrambling to pay bills, working for the man. Like I own my own company, and for years, that's what I've tried to do is start companies. And my mom would always be, you can't start a company, you need to get a job and work,
Hmm.
with benefit, and all this stuff. And so it would kind of get in my head, as I get older. And I've had three other businesses. Two of them were failures, and this one I have now is actually doing very well. So and I haven't spoken to her in 4 years, so go figure.
Right, right. Well, she was
Um,
undermining you, and I noticed when you said that she was getting you to fear the other parent, that's always a big red flag.
oh yeah, yeah, and it really affected me as a kid because like I was so afraid of my dad. Like I would never talk to him. Like I would go in my room and I would play,
Mhm.
and I can see it with my son now. Like my dad was several generations from me. So, I mean, he was watching like black and white westerns and listening to Kenny Rogers, like
Yeah.
we had nothing in common. And so talking to my son now, like we're a generation apart, and we communicate through Snapchat, and he's the only one I even talk to on Snapchat, but that's
Mhm.
because that's the way he communicates. And so I can
Right.
see it being hard to like try and find things to communicate with your kid, or not communicate, to connect with your kid. And that's, I think, what part of what parenting is so hard is trying to find those connections that you can build on.
Hmm.
So I just never could do that with my father, and she definitely
Oh.
didn't help at all. There was a period my dad was a carpenter in his retirement, and I would go down to his basement, hang out with him, and cut up some sticks and throw tape on them, stuff like that. And I think that was when we probably bonded the most when I was a kid. Um, but
Mhm.
um, but yeah, I mean, my mom wasn't around much. She didn't. keep much food in the house. She kept stuff that she liked, like,
Mhm.
and it's those things, have affected me now. And as an adult, like I go into Publix, and if it's buy one, get one, it's stuff nobody eats, Doritos, I got
Yeah.
Fritos, like my cupboards are filled with snacks. And now, of course, the kids are all healthy and nobody wants to eat any of it.
Right. Right.
But I keep buying it, and it just sits there and whatever. And it's, but my fridge is loaded. Like I keep stuff for the kids, and
Mhm.
that's just thing. Like I would go to kids' houses and their moms would buy them Capri Suns. I would get so jealous, like
Yeah.
like something so cheap. And when I, just my mom just kept me alive. That's basically what she did as a parent. She kept me alive.
Yet she was starving you from the other parent.
Yes. And I'm a boy, like boys need their dads, and
Mhm.
they need both their parents. But, like to know things like over my life, I have a lot of my friends are older, successful males.
Mhm.
Um, when I got married, my ex-wife, my ex-father-in-law, I got very attached to him, and vice versa. And even today, even though my ex-wife and I don't get along, he and I still communicate, and he still tries to help me. And we've had a situation recently where we came across somebody that was in common, and it had something to do with building on my business. And this guy went and met with him. And of course, my ex-wife's mother had no problems, bashing me up and this, that, and the other. And the guy told me that, my ex-father-in-law walked him outside and said, "Help him. I love him." So like that definitely felt really good, like that he still cares that much. And that he was, he was more of a father figure to me than anybody. And not
Mhm.
because my dad didn't want to, it's because he wasn't allowed to. But so that's what I've done all my life to learn like how to be a man is through
Right.
all making, finding mentors, that I can learn from and ask questions. And had my dad had been able to do all that, there are a lot of things I would have asked him.
Yeah, definitely. Life lessons.
Yeah.
Then you had gotten married and you have a 16-year-old with this ex-wife.
Yes. Yes. And we were together 14 years. We met when I was 19. She was graduating high school. So we were together, we did the deal. It took me 4 years to propose. And I
Mhm.
knew deep down inside she wasn't the one that I wanted to be with forever. But I
Mhm.
had my mom and, in my head telling me, you got to take the next step, you got to get married and got to have kids and, the typical boomer 1950s mentality, this is what you need to do to survive. And so I did all that. I got
Yeah.
married and we had good times. I mean, it wasn't like, it was miserable existence. We had a good life. My ex-wife did very well. I was doing very well at the time. I paid for everything while she got her master's degree, and we had a good little thing going for a little bit there.
Mhm.
And no abuse or any, you know, real drama, and most of the time we were married, I mean, her crazy didn't really come out until later, and maybe it had been there and I just really didn't notice. But and when I say crazy, I know every guy says that their ex is crazy, and every girl says that her ex-man is crazy. And, I'm sure I wasn't a prince all the time, and you know, but I've always been wanting to do things fairly.
Right.
I've never like tried to take her custody, of our son or go after, things. When we got divorced, I left with, we sold our marital home, made 80 grand in equity. Uh, we had all nice furniture from, nice furniture store, name brand furniture stores. I left with our guest room bed, a Dyson vacuum, and $10,000 and
Mhm.
40% custody of my son. And that
Mhm.
was back in 2017. That was before Florida enacted House Bill 1301, which got enacted in 2023, where the courts are to assume 50-50 unless there's some extenuating circumstance that the judge has to put in writing why he's ruling outside of 50-50.
Okay.
So I got sucked into that. And then, of course, the 4D funding, the 4E funding, which I knew nothing about. My ex-wife, I wanted 50% custody of my son. She
Mhm.
did not want to agree to that. She wanted child support. And, as I mentioned to you earlier, I mean, at the time, I had just started with the software company. I was, starting from the bottom. I was making $500 a week after taxes. She
Mhm.
was making she's a speech therapist, and she was well into her career. So she was doing very well. So when we got divorced, she suggested an amount for child support. She said she got it off the calculator, and I was still hopeful in the relationship. So I was like, "Oh, okay, sounds like a plan. I'll sign off on that." Even though
Mm-hmm.
it's, I'm making 1,500 a month, and there's 500 of it going to her. So
Mm-hmm.
for someone to try and survive off $1,000 a month is pretty impossible. So at the time I moved in with my mom, with my
Oh,
mom, my
yeah.
stepdad, because I couldn't afford to go anywhere. It's that, I had 10 grand, and I was making $1,000 a month. So it's like I could go get a place, but how the hell am I going to keep it?
Right. Right.
So I did that. And then I kept building up, and I'm not lazy, and I know how to, I know how to interview very well, and I would stick it out somewhere, and then I would, make a lateral, or not a lateral, but I would, make a move to make more money, and working for the man and trying that, and I just couldn't keep up, with the child support, working for the man and everything going on that goes on in the economy. It's very hard when, when you start off from nothing again when you're in your 30s,
Mm-hmm.
so I basically gave her everything. She had all the furniture. I signed off on all that, and then she still comes after me for money. She walked away with 70 grand in the in the marriage, and she felt like that was hers, and
Mm-hmm.
that's why she does. She felt like that was hers, and nobody could convince her otherwise. And that was the basis of our arguments. But
So, because we were talking earlier and you guys had somehow gotten together and then built another house, and
yes.
then she wanted a divorce after that. And that's a huge red flag, is this getting back together and then let's do a big purchase. I see this pattern with other people.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And then it's like, okay, now let's get a divorce. And then they take all, 100% of the.
Well, that's basically how it happened. We we got back together. Like, we had been separated for 4 years, went through two attorneys each. She started dating this attorney guy that she'd been with for 6 months. He moved in. Well, then they broke up, and we started talking again. And I was like, well, I was living with my mom, so I was dying to get out of there. And I was like, well, hey, can I move back into our house?
Oh,
So
yeah.
and she was like, so she agreed. So I moved back in. And then, 2 months after being moved back in, she was like, it's kind of got bad juju here. Maybe we should sell it. The market's up. We'll build a new house. We'll start over, yada, yada, yada. And I'm like, oh, like flurries and coming out of my
Oh,
eyeballs, like, because I really wanted my marriage to work, despite my being unhappy. And I was
mhm.
very unhappy because I could not be myself with her.
Uh-huh.
And I mean, down to like my dress code, like I had to be somebody totally different, and that's my fault for doing that. But
But you didn't
um,
know. You don't know when this is happening. A lot of people don't
no,
know. I mean,
no, you're not
there were
aware.
red flags going on I didn't even know about. So,
Yeah, yeah, and I didn't know. I wasn't emotionally trained at the time to recognize those things. And I'm not some emotionally perfectionist right now either, but I've done 6 months of intensive therapy over the last 6 months, and
yeah.
I was doing it every week, and I was very committed, and I learned a lot. But yes, so I move in. She's like, let's build a new house. I'm like, great, great idea. We put the house on the market. I mean, it sold full asking price within, I think, like 2 weeks. And we built this 5 bedroom, 4,000 square foot house. And about a month and a half in, she's like, I'm just not really feeling it. Maybe we should just move forward with the divorce. And now the money from the equity had gone into her account, because now we had separated accounts when we separated. So
Hmm.
we no longer had a joint account, they had her account. And so the money went into her. So she had already control of the money. So we put 10% down on the new house, though, expensive house. So that chalked up a good chunk of it. But she went out and bought herself a new $1,000 Louis Vuitton purse. And she's going out, and this is her money. So
Yeah.
it is what it is.
Well, that's a form of coercive control as well.
Oh, she's a big control freak. She's controlled my relationship with my son this whole time. Like, right now, we're
Oh,
we're currently in a dispute. I'm finding her in what do you call it? She's violated the MSA several times over the last few years.
What's an MSA for people that don't know?
The marriage settlement agreement.
Okay.
So this is our divorce papers that has the custody and all that stuff in it. And she I forget where we were going with this, but
Okay. Your the son. Y- is she seeing that your son?
well, so in the MSA it states that she when we have a disagreement, she is to try and work it out with me.
Mhm.
If she gets nowhere with that, there's no resolution, then she has to take it to mediation. Now,
Mhm.
just to backtrack real quick and kind of give you a backstory, she ended up marrying the attorney that she dated. So she married him. They were together for 6 months, got divorced. So
Wow.
it didn't let not a long marriage, but they're still very good friends. So our MSA states she's got to come to me, communicate, which okay, so now I remember we were talking about. So how she uses my son, she doesn't communicate with me about anything. So she'll schedule doctor's appointments, dentist appointments, things like that. Now she has majority, and she doesn't say anything to me. So what she'll do is she'll go and she'll tell everybody else that I'm not active, I don't help out, I don't do this, because I'm not calling her every week and saying, "Hey, are you scheduling an appointment this week?" Instead of how co-parenting work is,
Right.
she calls me before she schedules the appointment and says, "Hey, he's got to go to this appointment. What day can you do it?" That's how you should co-parent.
Right.
You communicate about the things before you do them. She doesn't do any of that. She's never done that. She makes the decision and then she sends me a bill. And so what's happened over the last 3 years is my son needed braces.
Mm.
And so she messaged me. And at the time I had just I was working for a company, COVID happened, I was freight brokering and
Mm.
freight brokering at that time when COVID happened, it flipped the market to be the other way. So I was having a hard time, making a lot of money on these loads. I was like, I got to do something else. And
Oh, yeah.
so I ended up starting the IT company that I have now. And, but there was a period where, I didn't take out any loans. I didn't get any investment money. I was working 100% off cash. I still am working 100% off cash. Um, and so while I'm doing this, she asks me, or she says he's got to get braces. It's going to cost $5,000, and you're supposed to pay half.
Mm.
And so I messaged her back and I said, hey, my baby mama I was with at the time, who has an older daughter, had just had braces and they were making payments on them. And so I said, and she suggested to me to suggest that to her. And so I said, hey, yeah, look at, I don't have, the lump sum to give you for his braces right now. Can you set up payments and I'll help you make the payments? Never heard back from her at all. No message back, no response, no, yeah, no, no,
Mm.
no, nothing. So she went and got them done. So then
Mm.
a year later, now it states in our MSA that when medical expenses are covered by one party or the other, that they have 15 days to submit um, the receipt, and then there's 30 days to get reimbursement.
Mhm.
So she sent me the receipt. She used her ex-husband to file a motion of contempt, for not paying for my half of the medical bills. When he sent the email to me of the copy of the MSA, he cut out the part where it says must send within 15 days, because now this is a year later that
Uh-huh.
she's trying to get reimbursed. He cut that out to be slick. I don't know if he thought I was an idiot or something.
Oh,
But so I knew that all I knew what was up already. So I was like, okay. So then I had to hire a lawyer.
oh.
I had to go pay a retainer fee. I had to hire a lawyer. I've gone to family court without an attorney before, and it does not work. I mean, you can be the best talker and you
Mm-hmm.
can know laws and learn laws, which I don't know how much free time people have that they can sit and learn this stuff
It's
to represent
horrible.
themselves pro se. But yeah, it is horrible. I mean, I've taken up a ton of time just to get stuff prepared for the attorneys,
Right,
you know,
right,
because they're only as good as the information you provide them. So, I
right.
mean, you have a lot of work to do even when you have an attorney. So I got an attorney, and this guy was, he was a shitty attorney. He was, oops, I'm sorry, I said, but he was, he took took a bunch of money from me. I never heard from the guy. He never explained anything. He wasn't good in court. He did a horrible job of representing me, but he had no problems calling me up and hitting me up for more money. Um,
Mm.
and I didn't know, I don't know. I'm not an attorney, I've never worked under attorneys. I don't know, these people send you a bill, you pay your retainer, $2,500 retainer fee. Who knows where it goes? They're not sending you an itemized statement every week, telling you what's coming out of it. They just hit you up for more money every, so often. Oh, hey, you got to pay another 1,500. So that's another contention I have with, the whole legal system. But in any event, so she asked me for these braces. We go to court. um, the judge turns her down, you know, but now she's also in contempt because she skipped the first two steps that she's supposed to go before utilizing the courts. The judge just kind of, yeah, she should have done this first, and that was it,
Uh,
and it's like, dude, like this whole case is, it's bunk.
yeah,
Like I should get my legal fees covered. She's costed me to hire an attorney when we could have handled this in mediation,
right. Or over the
and
phone.
or over the phone. Like I would have, I mean, I tried to work it out with her, but they just completely, my attorney wasn't good. He didn't show the text messages where I told her I would make payments, like none of this got brought up.
Uh,
So
yeah.
he just denied her. He denied her. He doesn't have to pay you this because, you submitted it a year later. So she's been told already here at this court hearing that that's the deal. She knows the deal. So she's still keeping me in court. She's denied on the braces. I have an arrears from a period of when she suspended the Department of Revenue's ability to enforce any action because I started a new company. She was married to the attorney, so we were in a good place at the time, co-parenting or whatever you want to call it. Um, and um, so I had this arrears that had built up. So she's now trying to come after a lump sum of the arrears.
Mm.
Now, keep in mind, I am on a payment plan with the Department of Revenue, so I pay like $25 a month extra that goes towards my arrears.
Oh.
My attorney explained this to her attorney, and she still proceeded with trying to get me in front of, we got in front of the judge, requested the lump sum of money. Again, she got denied. So we're kind of sitting in limbo, and then all this stuff starts going on with baby mama.
Mm.
So then baby mama knows that we're in court and what she's trying to do, and she contacts her and says, "Hey, he's got two businesses. He's
Ah.
got tons of money that he's hiding. He's taking lavish vacations." Now, I went on a weekend cruise last year, and that's the first vacation I've been on in 5 years. So, and it
Wow.
wasn't like a Royal Caribbean. It was like an HSC. It was like, I think it was like, I think the total cost was like $475, you know?
Uh-huh.
So, my ex-wife got, she ate this all up with a spoon. I mean, she's hired a forensics accountant and they're requesting all my financials, copies of statements from accounts that I haven't even had in like 5 years. I
Ah.
mean, just creating this crap storm of now I've got to go through all my accounts, these closed accounts, try to remember the freaking logins for half these things,
Oh, yeah.
reset the passwords to everything, and then go through each month and print them out or copy them so I can put them in a file and so this, is a huge energy suck. Now I have a new business I'm trying to, you know, keep afloat and
Mhm.
scale at the same time. I've landed some good big customers. The Florida Aquarium, the Florida Holocaust Museum are customers of mine. The Home Depot. I do work
Mhm.
for a lot of civil agencies, government agencies. And so I'm getting all this early success, but I'm 100% cash. So I'm trying to grow off of the profits.
Right.
What little there are, no, everybody knows that
Yeah.
businesses aren't, profitable in the first 3 to 5 years, and that
But
might even be more
the
now.
judges don't care.
The judges don't care, the judges don't care.
And these
So
two women were tag teaming.
they're still tag teaming. It's crazy. Like they're
Ah.
just they're now best buddies. And it's crazy because I'm good friends with her baby mama's ex-husband, who she did the same stuff to him. It just
Wow.
happened a little differently. But yeah, so I really just ignore the stuff with my ex-wife unless I absolutely need to address it. Like
Yeah.
we've been trying to get her financials she's been dodging our process server, I think 8 times.
Mm.
Uh, And finally, the judge ordered it because I'm like, pull her financials for the last 5 years and compare the two. Like this is
Right.
how you guys should be doing this. She has probably made double than I've been
Hmm.
making in the last 5 years, but yet she's dragging me into court. She lives in a brand new 4 bedroom house. She's driving a brand new Jaguar SUV. I live in a 2 bedroom 1980s condo. I drive a 4-year-old Ford Explorer.
Hmm.
Like I'm not, she's taken my son and his buddies up to Orlando for his birthday to Disney and all this stuff. And
Hmm.
I'm like, you know, like we look at these are the facts of what's going on.
Right.
Like these are the facts. She clearly has more money and resources than I do. And good for her that she makes good money,
Right.
but like she shouldn't be able to use the courts to drag me into court to get blood from a turnip.
Right.
You know,
Right. Weaponizing the courts along with the legal abuse.
it's just yeah, it's just crazy and like how they don't see it. Well, I guess they just have so many cases, and that's part of the problem too, is they don't have time to investigate every couple that comes in front of them of what the real situations are. They got just whatever time, the hour that they have, and whatever information that's brought in front of them by the attorneys
Or withheld by the attorneys.
or without.
Evidence
Yeah,
withheld.
yeah. I want to show everything. I've put together, I spent 48 hours
Mm.
on 2 documents for my attorneys because I've got 2 attorneys and 4 cases going right now. So I've created timeline documents that correspond to files that are exhibits that have screenshots or files within them. And I have over 300 pieces of evidence like that in a file that I have created for these guys to make it as bluntly as easy as possible for them to find stuff. But,
Hmm.
they only want to use certain things,
Hmm.
you know, and, my mind, I want to use everything because I think
Right.
it's all important.
It's
But
all
in the legal
important.
system, it's not,
Yes. Yeah, and I know you said that maybe the judges don't have time, but they should. I think they should make the time, and they know what they're doing with this Title 4D funding.
Oh, yeah.
So they're going to have one person be the non-custodial parent so they can continue this Title 4D funding. They just keep it going.
They keep it going. And the guy, that attorney Robert Garza that's out there um, advocating for fathers' rights, where I first saw him was on a video of him at a court hearing, and he had a bunch of people behind him that I think it was in Texas, and he was talking to the judge, and he was like, you like my emergency motion was served to baby mama to remove her custody in February 7th, and it's
Mm.
been pushed to January. So what Mr. Garza said in his video, he's talking to the judge, and he's like, you guys schedule these things months out, from each other. And what'd you have for lunch last Thursday? He's like, you don't remember. You can't.
Right.
How can you remember all these people that you see in front of them? They've got 15 minutes before each case, and they're skimming through each piece of evidence just to refresh their memory. Like, they're not that smart. I don't think
Right.
anybody's that smart. You know what I mean? To be able to get everything that you need to rule, fairly and justly. You're just looking at a few facts and whatever time you have, and then hopefully you remember something. But
Oh,
my judge is, he's got to be in his mid 70s. Like I'm 45 and I'm having a hard time remembering
oh,
everything. You can't tell me this
right.
guy, just because he's a judge, has the memory of a freaking turtle.
Right. He should retire. I mean, don't they
It,
want to retire and enjoy their retirement at 62 or 4 or whatever?
I really don't understand what he doesn't care. I can tell he's just trying to
Hmm.
push these off his docket. I don't know if they get, more retirement the longer they stay on the bench, or maybe, uh,
Oh, a fatter pension.
fatter pension, like every attorney I talk to, because I've talked to other family attorneys considering switching, which I love my family attorney. She is absolutely great, and I would recommend her to anybody, but my case has gotten very complicated, and
Yeah.
I feel I need somebody that's more going to be more dedicated to
Aggressive,
seeing justice.
more,
And it's hard to find an attorney to do that unless you're throwing a ton of money at them.
right,
So,
right.
you know, um, but yeah, I mean, every attorney I talk to, I tell them who I have, and they're like, "Oh, yeah, he's very biased."
Yeah,
And
and some of
you
them
know,
are when they get to a certain age or even certain counties. Some counties are biased against fathers, some counties are biased against mothers. I mean, it's like
yeah.
it's a free-for-all type of thing. Um, Robert Garza gave a speech here in Pennsylvania yesterday. It was absolutely beautiful for
Oh, that's
shared
cool.
shared parenting, and it's all about the parents. He didn't bring up mothers or fathers. He was focused on the parents. He's not an attorney, but he's so
Oh, I thought he was.
yeah, he's brilliant. I mean, I just loved his speech. He said it all so beautifully.
Well, he must be very successful at whatever he's doing because he definitely makes a lot of money. He was talking about how
Oh,
much he spent in his own
oh
custody
yeah.
battle, and it was in the hundreds of thousands of dollars. So, and he even says, like most people can't afford to do this,
No,
but I
no.
could. And so, but yes, like I've learned, so I've done a lot of research. Ironically, coincidentally, I ended up meeting this judge's daughter through a singles group, and we ended up chatting. I told her he was my judge. I didn't tell her the specifics of my case, but I just, her last name was the same, and it's a very not a very common name. And I was like, "Hey, are you the judge's daughter?" And she was like, "Yes." Why? Blah blah blah. We ended up talking, and come to find out she's got baby daddy issues with
Oh no.
his grandson. He was raised by his mother. So that's why he has his bias, because those are his experiences. And, that's why I feel I need to bring up my experience with my mother, because it's like, look, Judge, not all mothers are saints. Yours may have been the best mother in the world, but,
Mhm.
let me tell you, they're not all that way.
Right.
Sometimes the dad is the best parent.
Mhm. And vice versa. And I think a lot of
Absolutely.
these judges operate on their own past trauma of the way they grew up. And if your case is similar to how it strikes them funny, they could
Yeah.
just be against you, whether you're a mother or a father.
Yeah, and I mean, I have mounds of evidence, and my attorney has. So
Mhm.
the hearing that we came up, so my emergency motion to remove her custody was filed first. So this is where my case gets very complicated and kind of how the system really shows itself. And so I filed to remove her custody. Now, keep in mind, she has a pattern. She has a past. She has a past record, criminal record. She's
Mhm.
had her first daughter removed from her custody because she was
Wow.
basically doing the same thing she's doing now. And it was a long time ago. Our daughter's 20 something now. So it was a long time ago. There's some years between it, but it's basically the same pattern. And what prompted me to file this motion was she sent me one text message one night where she says, "I think I've just done fentanyl," and she's shooting cocaine, by the way.
Oh,
"I think I just did fentanyl. This is really weird. It would be really cool if it takes me out."
ah,
And then there's a series of numbers, and then she says, "Oops, sorry, the baby has my watch." So my daughter is there with her, all of this in one text message. She's doing fentanyl. Now I put in my paper to the judge because I wrote a letter, and it's like, you know, you may not be a fentanyl expert, but do you know how much fentanyl it actually takes to kill an adult? And
right.
the equivalent is 2 grains of salt.
Mm.
And it just has to come into contact, and it can cause respiratory failure.
Mhm.
So that's just one message out of 200 that I have of its kind. Threats of suicide. She's threatened to kill herself at
Mhm.
least 4 or 5 times in text message. Um, she was losing her place of residence. She was losing everything, losing her car. I got her deferment
Right.
on her car,
Well,
losing her.
even based on her telling you that she's going to unalive herself is a danger to the child.
Yeah. And she has diagnosed mental health issues. She's also on a lot of medication. She has diagnosed mental health issues,
Did you know this when you met
undiagnosed.
her?
I did, but I didn't understand mental health. And that's kind of where my therapy came into help for
Hmm.
me, because my mom has suffered with it her whole life. So all this chaos stuff I thought was
Oh,
normal. I would get with a
ah,
girl that was calm. I dated a girl in between baby mama, a girl I dated in high school. I've loved this girl. I've never stopped thinking about her, even today. like I'll always love this girl and I'll always regret myself from so we I reconnected with her. She'd always felt the same way. She was married, now getting divorced, and we reconnected and it was perfect. We fell in love,
Mhm.
we're making future plans.
Oh, good.
Baby mama found out about her and
Uh,
harassed her and all and this girl was very big on her peace. She had no stuff going on. Her and her ex got along, you know, and baby mama like sent her videos of us having sex and like
mhm,
just really harassed this girl. And obviously and at this time, my mental health was kind of spiraling because I didn't know how to deal with all of this. And I didn't,
stressful.
now she's being drug into my craziness and I just want to protect her and I don't know how,
Mhm,
and I did it the wrong way. And I blame myself at the end of the day. I
mhm,
just didn't protect her peace enough, and the relationship ended. And so,
mm.
and it's really sucks because, I have never really felt peace much in my life, but when we would be together, I started to recognize what peace really is. And I was like, wow, I forget about my problems when we're together. Like, it's just really calm and like it's not like too much fun, it's not crazy, it's like just right, it's just perfect, and that's what I used to think was boring because I was so used to chaos,
Chaos.
fighting,
Yeah.
arguing, whatever, always some kind of drama going on, and that's how bad I was, trained as in relationships as someone. And, now I'm catching them red flags in people I'm not even dating. I can see it
Mhm.
from a mile away. I'm like, oh man, I wouldn't talk to that girl in 100 years. But
Yeah. I mean, that's important. I think our young people need to know more about the red flags and what to look for.
yeah,
If you could name two red flags or even three, what would they be?
uh, so an older gentleman friend of mine, um, told me, and I think it's true, at least in a lot of cases. He said, always look for a girl that has a good relationship with her father.
Hmm.
And so I've started to notice the girls that I were chaotic and didn't, we had a horrible breakup or whatever, were girls that were not close with their fathers. The girl that I dated in high school had a very good relationship with her father.
Hmm.
And, and so I don't know what the psychological basis behind that is, but so that's something I look for. I consider a red flag if they don't have a good relationship with their father. Now, if it's something where he just has never been in the picture or, there's certain
Yeah.
circumstances where obviously it doesn't apply, but another one is conflict resolution. Like, do they go straight to yelling?
Uh,
Because I hate confrontation and I don't like to yell.
mhm,
Like I'm a big guy. I've been working out since, late 90s, very hard, very heavily. I've always been pretty jacked up, but I'm just a big teddy bear. Like I totally am calm all the time. I'm not very
mhm,
aggressive. I've never had anything aggressive in my life. And so when people come at me like that, it makes me shut down.
mhm.
And like I don't even want to, I don't talk to anybody. Like I will disappear from the world when I feel like stuff's getting too heavy like that, just to avoid it.
Like it's poor temper
And
controls.
yeah. And so like I've noticed that my ex-wife, very quick a temper, baby
Hmm.
mama, also very quick temper. Like they go from 0 to 100 like that. Third red flag is how they're if they have a ex, a husband or whatever, and a child, how is their
Hmm.
relationship with their ex? If they have a good relationship, I'm like, that's a winner. Like if they co-parent well, where they're like, they show up to birthday parties with their,
Hmm.
significant others or whatever, and they all get along, like that's a really good sign. Like your
Hmm.
relationship's over. What is the need
Yeah.
to harbor, all this bitterness and stuff like whatever? Like it's over. We've moved on. That's what moving on is.
Hmm. Right. And those are really good ones. Also, I mean, I'll throw one in like if even if they have a problem with their mother, you know, you got to find out why, it could be alienation, it could be whatever, you know.
Yeah, and back to my father thing too. Yeah, and if that's an issue with
Yeah.
that also, I mean, it's a case by case basis,
Right. Right.
but yeah, you're right for sure.
So where are you at now? You're, you know, Are you punting? I mean, like everyone's punting. They're like in limbo with their cases
Oh
because
God.
they get
My case
dragged
is
out.
my case is dragged out. So to kind of give a, I don't know how much time we have, but just to give like a little other backstory. So I filed my emergency motion on February 7th. She was served. Now, in this 3 weeks leading up to my serving her with this motion, she I broke up with her. She requested twice in text message to move in with me, which I denied her.
Hmm.
Um, we were supposed to go to Fort Lauderdale to visit her family. She asked me if I was still going. I said no. And then
Hmm.
she went off on me. She was pissed about that. Our daughter was diagnosed. She had been sick. She's in daycare, so she's always sick,
Right.
but she was really sick. Baby mama didn't take her to the doctor during her time. So when I got her on my now, we were doing 50-50, but now, we're doing 60-40.
Hmm.
Or no, this was at the time we were doing 50-50. Sorry. So I got her on Wednesday. Thursday, I took her to urgent care. And she was diagnosed with double ear infections
Oh.
and bronchitis. It was supposed to be baby mama's weekend because I would have her Wednesday through Friday on my off weekends. Excuse me. And she was talking about taking her to Orlando to party with her now roommate slash best friend. Now, the two of these two I know use drugs together.
Hmm.
These are the two that she uses with, she drinks excessively with. These are, she's a pretty, these are not respectable-ish people in my mind.
Hmm.
Um, but in any event, I'm like, no, she's sick. You can't
Yeah.
take her to Orlando to MegaCon to go party. Who's gonna
Hmm.
watch? You guys are partying. Who's watching the kids?
Right.
So I kept her. I called my lawyer. Hey, am I breaking any laws? We have no family plan at this time. I'm like, am I breaking any laws by keeping her? And she said no. So I kept her. Well, she had been put on a nebulizer that the doctor provided the nebulizer to us for
Hmm.
the household. She had the nebulizer and the medication. And so I'm messaging her and I'm like, hey, I need the nebulizer.
Hmm.
And she's now telling me she's in Orlando, she can't get it. I'm just gonna have whatever, blah, blah, blah. So we're going back and forth and talking parents, and I'm going off on her. Now she refused, she has switched from text message. This is another thing she does. She's very calculated. She'll talk to me any way she wants in text message, and then she'll stop talking to me in text message and say, the only way I'm going to talk to you is in talking parents. She'll force me to talking parents, and then she'll sound like she's the calm one.
Ah.
She'll rile me up in text message and then force me to talking parents. And so now at this point, I'm pissed because I've just found out she's been bringing this guy around my daughter after 2 weeks who also has a very extensive record, lost his daughter from CPS. The only reason he got his custody back is because the mom died of an overdose. Not
Mm.
somebody I want around my 2-year-old daughter. So I've just found out about this. She's got the nebulizer. She's refusing, that she can't get me the nebulizer. So now we go to talking parents, and I'm like, hey, I'm going off on her. Why are you bringing this guy? Da 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 da. And she eventually has a friend bring the nebulizer on Saturday night. Now she just got served with my motion on Friday also to remove her custody. So all these things have happened. I've denied her moving in with me, Fort Lauderdale. I broke up with her. She's now with this new guy within 2 weeks, and I'm, berating her about that. She's losing her place. I kept her daughter from her on this weekend, so she's fuming. Sunday comes, or Saturday night comes, her friend drops the nebulizer off, no medication. Hey, I
Ah.
need the medication. Well, she stops responding to me. So Sunday, now she's said in some of these conversations that she'll meet with me, she'll come back, she'll meet with me. We're going back and forth. No, I don't want you coming over. Da 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 da. Sunday comes. I've been to her place. It's literally well, her old place now, but it's 3 minutes around the corner from my place.
Hmm.
So I go over there. She opens the door wide open. The two of them are there looking hungover as hell, and so I start going off on her. I'm like, your daughter's sick. She needs a nebulizer, and you're just hanging out here, with this guy looking like y'all just spent the whole weekend,
Yeah.
doing whatever, hanging from chandeliers. And we get into a verbal dispute. Now, she has a camera in her living room. I set it up. It was a baby shower gift.
Hmm.
Her car records when it senses motion, which is parked in front of her place.
Hmm.
I get my car and I leave. 4 hours later, the cops show up. Now, I'm not answering the door because I have an attorney
Mhm.
and I'm like, I want to talk to my attorney first. I don't know what's going on. I don't know
Mhm.
what's happening. I mean, nothing happened as far as I know, so I don't know what she said.
Mhm.
So we end up getting my emergency motion got scheduled for the next Friday. So I'm like, hey, we're gonna go in front of the judge and he'll handle all this,
Mhm.
because I'm thinking she called the police and said there was a domestic. So I'm thinking it's a domestic, goes in front of the same judge.
Ah.
Now, backstory a little bit before last year prior, I filed an injunction against her because she broke into my car and she vandalized it.
Mm.
2 days later, she filed her own injunction claiming that I was threatening her with abuse.
Ah.
Because we both wanted them, the same judge that we have didn't request any evidence from either of us. He just said, well, you both want them, granted. So,
Mm.
not thinking, I didn't have an attorney at the time, I should have refuted her injunction and let her show proof because that would have helped me out. But I didn't, and I just
Mhm.
wanted her away from me. So we ended up both canceling those injunctions because we would go back and forth with wanting to get together or whatever. So now fast forward. So we go to the courthouse. I have neighbors come. I have a terminally ill cancer neighbor, good friend of
Mm.
mine. She's 47 years old, sweet girl. She has witnessed a lot of craziness from baby mama. Her mom bought the place next door to me to because she has 3 years to live. She was given
Oh.
a prognosis of 3 years, and so the
Mhm.
mom bought the place next to me, moved down to help out. So they see a lot of seen a lot of stuff that's going on. They come to court with me, among other neighbors that I have and friends. Everybody, I get a group that comes to court. So we're sitting in
Right.
front of the courthouse. The police show up and they arrest me, and we have court in 20 minutes.
Ah.
And I'm like, you got to be kidding me. And they're like, reading me my rights and all this. And I'm like, what are the charges? And
Right.
they're like, it's burglary with assault, which carries a 7 year mandatory minimum sentence. And I'm like, I had to have them sit me down because I was about to pass out. Like I'm
Oh my
dripping with
God.
sweat. I'm like, what? How is this even possible? Like, I didn't bust in anywhere. I didn't go in to steal anything, and I definitely didn't touch anybody. And so, but that's how the system works. Somebody goes in, says something happened, or the cops they go and arrest them, and then it's up to the person to prove their innocence. It's a completely backwards system. So
Right.
I go to jail. I get a crazy bond. I had to pay out of pocket $7,500 to get out the next day. I have a business, I have a big account, big project at the Florida Aquarium. I can't just disappear. And in
Uh-huh.
fact, if I hadn't done that, I'd still be sitting in jail
Oh
because it's been continued so much. And it's now continued to January. So, you know what I mean? Like I would have lost my business, my
oh
customers, I
God.
would lose everything. So, so I get out and I hire the attorney. I now hire a criminal attorney, and I pay his
Mhm.
retainer, and he gets it dropped down to a trespassing, like instantaneously. Like everybody looked at this and was like, "Oh, this is BS." So I'm like, if everybody knows this is BS, how can the police charge people with stuff like this? Like, where's the justice?
I, they're being lied to as well.
And very true, but they had no evidence. There's no physical evidence. There was no signs of forced entry. There was no marks on either of them to show any
Yeah.
contact. I'm thinking she's got cameras in her place. Have her pull the cameras. Well, she removed the camera before the police
Ah.
got there, and she didn't give them the camera footage from the car because she had sent me a text message at another time showing me the angle that the car covers, and it covers the front door where we were. So you know, I don't know if I should have said that, but it's being brought up in court. But anyway, um so that happens. I call DCF and because my our daughter was in the car during this event, she added her to the case to cover her with the injunction because the temporary injunction gets put into case, she's so it now protects my daughter. So now my daughter's taken from me. Uh and So for 2 months before we could get in front of the judge, I don't see my daughter. And everything that's going on, my mind's worst case
Oh.
scenarios. She's with this guy that's,
Yeah.
she's doing drugs, she's, drinking excessively. I've got Facebook posts of her doing shotguns of beer, the night that all this happened. She's at a friend's house doing shotguns of beer like she's in college. She's 40 something years old.
Grow
Uh,
up.
yeah.
Oh
So,
God.
so it's obvious that this wasn't a very traumatic experience as much as she has made it seem like to the police. But so DCF gets involved. They contact me. And I tell them, I'm like, I'm not trying to hide from you guys. I have nothing to hide. Like, I am the one that's trying to protect my daughter. I tell her about the motion I filed. I tell her about what's going on with baby mama. She suggests that I call and I file my own report. So I hang up with her. I call DCF. File the, whatever you call it. They apparently, once I called and filed it, you hear nothing. You get nothing. You have no idea what happens. You don't know if they go out and investigate. You don't know anything. So I didn't hear anything. I assumed nothing happened. So come to find out, we go to court two months later, where I get my temporary custody now, which is less than what we were doing prior to, the court order. Um, and she says to the judge that she was put on a case plan by DCF, which means she failed the drug test.
Hmm.
My attorney and I are just finding out about this. Well, she's
Oh,
now completed the case plan. Like, it's all done. They closed the file. So we didn't even know. Had we had known before we went to court, we could have brought that up for my temporary custody. Like, hey, she's moved into a four-bedroom trailer where six people were already living.
oh,
And, these are not, this is not like some nice trailer road. It's on a dirt road. There's like, it looks like where meth was born.
right.
There's yeah, it's not as pretty as you can imagine. Um, and I'm just like dumbfounded that she's holding majority custody. Like, with me, I live alone. I have a two-bedroom place. My
Hmm.
16-year-old son, he's 16. He barely comes around. I've made his room her room. She's got her own room. She has her own space here, that she's got the run of the whole place. But so I'm now wondering what's going on with this DCF report. So I start chasing the DCF trail. I go to the office that's local to me here. They're like, we don't do that. There's an office in Tampa. So I drive from
Hmm.
Port Richey, Florida to Tampa, Florida. That office is like, well, they don't actually do the CPS stuff in any office. You have to contact them. So I call them up and I sit on the phone waiting for them. I mean, all this took about a day. And then they're like, well, you have to go on the website and you have to order a copy of the thing as long as it's closed. So I do that, and now like
Hmm.
2 months has gone by and I'm waiting for this report. And so finally we're getting close to our next court date. And it would be really nice to have the information that's in this report. So I call them and I'm like, this is the deal. I've submitted it online. I've been waiting. And she's telling me they're still a month and a half behind from, getting to the month where, it was filed. So
Hmm.
I'm like, she was nice and she went ahead and pushed mine forward and got it sent to me. And so I'm reading this report and I'm just like blown away. Baby
Oh,
mama came up with this crazy story that she was moving because I was stalking and harassing her. Now, I have plenty of text messages where she's talking about her water getting shut off. She can't afford to live here. She just wants to buy a camper. Like, I mean, I got tons of text messages that would prove her situation is she has no money.
mm.
But she's telling this DCF person that I'm this guy. I'm stalking, harassing her. Got she's saying, I brought up the suicide. So, the DCF investigator asks her, and she says, well, I have some down days, but I've never threatened suicide. I've got
Huh?
plenty of text messages to prove this, that she has.
That's
Uh,
vital. That's so vital.
you would think.
Um,
I've told them about her diagnosed mental health, that she's not medicating herself. She did tell them, yes, she's not medicating. The DCF investigator put it in a report that that was a concern, her mental health issues that are being unmanaged. She admitted to using cocaine, just she said late January, early February. They tested her, she popped dirty. Um, you know, it, this woman still has majority custody of my daughter, keep in mind. Uh, and so, she's saying that the girl she lives with that her best friend that she uses with is her safety monitor, and she's moving in with her safety monitor to be better monitor. Like, like who can come up with lies this easily and this quickly is, and so this DCF investigator is eating all this up. And so in this report, she talks about who she interviews, and she interviews her baby mama's neighbor. Now, this woman, and I don't want to say anything bad about anybody that suffers from things, but you can tell this woman's not playing with a full deck within 3 minutes of talking to her, 3 seconds even.
Hmm. Hmm.
My attorney even mentioned the fact from the cop's body cam when he watched the video, he said, this woman doesn't sound like she's all there.
Yeah.
But anyway, she's telling the police, so she's lived next to me for years. She's da 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 da. No, she's lived next to you for a year because before that she was living with me for 3 years. So, again, these are people that are just lying for her.
It's all
Um,
one-sided.
all one-sided, and the DCF investigator must just be eating this up. She must have been through the same type of situation or something or know somebody. So then everything that relates to me, she adds commentary in there that makes it seem like I'm the problem. She
Hmm.
then she then falsifies two witness statements, one of them being my mother, who I haven't spoken to in 4 years. So I now have to break the silence with my mother, confirm what she said to the DCF investigator, which was that I don't know if I can say it because it's an open investigation, but she basically just said we hadn't spoken in years, and
Hmm.
that was it. Now the DCF investigator said a whole heck of a lot more and some pretty bad
Right.
stuff
Because it's
that I
one-sided.
know that I know my mom wouldn't say about me.
Right, right.
And then the other one was the director of my daughter's daycare. And these ladies love me. I go in there, I talk to them all the time. And, they've kind of known what was going on. I brought them the motion that I had filed to remove her custody. In case it had gotten granted, I was like, here's what's going on. I need you to keep an eye on things. So the DCF investigator, said that this woman, didn't say very nice things about me either. And I have in writing in an email where I couldn't tell her what was said in the report because of privacy with baby mama, but I just said, what did you say? Do you remember what you said? And
Hmm.
and from what she said, she remembers saying is not close to what was said in the report.
Hmm.
So I started chasing down that rabbit hole. So now I'm filing complaints with the general inspector and the regional DCF and the girls supervisor, and I'm getting the blow off, from these lower ones. So just yesterday, in fact, I escalated it to FDLE, the executive general inspector, which I believe is the one in Tallahassee, and somebody from the governor's office,
Hmm.
or some kind of corruption unit that's over in Tallahassee, that deals, I guess, with this inner corruption stuff.
Hmm.
But and what blows me away is that these people that work for DCF or CPS,
Hmm.
who are, no offense to anybody if this is your job, but you're not anybody special. Like they're not presidents or senators, that might be able to get away with lies, on official reports, but they're low paid employees, and they're going and lying on official investigative reports. Now, if you look up the laws, they're actually breaking federal and state laws.
Always.
And
Yes.
and when I break a federal or state law, I get arrested and I go to jail.
Hmm.
And there's no question about it. Like, I mean, no judge can deny that. This is how our country is supposed to be set up, is by the laws. And if you break the law, then you get punished.
Hmm.
And so I'm online and I'm posting on Facebook, in different groups. There's a lot of CPS corruption site or groups and DCF corruption. And there's so many people that are going through the same thing.
Hmm.
And I'm like,
Hmm.
how are these people able to do this? I don't understand like why they have this kind of realm to just, and like I'm filing complaints that are documented with higher ups, and they're just kind of like, well, we don't have anything to do with the court system and custody stuff. And I'm like, dude, like, do you see what's in my emails? Like it was very organized. I
Right.
put the screenshots of everything, like screenshots of suicide, like all the stuff that I had, that's like, look at, this is who you helped keep my daughter. You know what I mean? Like this is where my daughter's at right now. And she might be fine today,
Uh-huh.
but things aren't fine until they're not fine. You
They
know,
don't care about kids either.
something might happen. It may not, she might be keeping her alive today, but tomorrow she goes out, starts deciding she's going to shoot cocaine again or get fentanyl or whatever. And, my daughter ends up getting some or and then it becomes a problem,
Right.
and now people are paying attention and they're like, oh, we need to go after this investigator. So I reached, I've started, I've got packets set up for media, so that's my next step is to bring it to the media. And I've out of talking with people, a guy sent me a video from a case in Tallahassee, where same thing happened. The investigator falsified two different things on two different cases. They didn't go into details, but that person was charged with criminal charges and arrested.
Mhm.
And that's what should happen. Like when they do this stuff, like they're interfering with a child's life,
Right.
and they're not putting them, they're not doing it in the best interest of the child.
And it's
You
also obstruction of justice, I would think. I'm not a lawyer, but I'm just saying.
I mean, it's what happened to our amendment, our rights,
Hmm.
like our court system is just, and everybody's like, oh, well, they're so backed up and this, that, and the other. And DCF, they don't have any money. And it's like, no, they took in $4.3 billion last year. I don't know where that money went.
Hmm.
Obviously didn't go to their employees, but they're taking in some money. You know what
Right.
I mean? Like, and then I've even had some friends that kind of defended the DCF worker, and they're like, oh, where they're overworked, they're unhappy. And it's like,
Uh,
look, I've had shitty jobs too, but I don't go and break the laws while I'm at
right.
work, because I'm unhappy with my job. If you're
Yeah.
unhappy with your job, go get another job.
Right.
If you're underpaid, go find a higher paying job. If you're working for DCF, you obviously have enough qualifications to get a job somewhere else.
Hmm. Hmm.
It's not like you're going to have to go flip burgers at McDonald's,
Well, maybe. Or Walmart.
or maybe at Walmart. You might even make more money. Who knows? You might even be
Right.
happier. I don't know. But it's, and the more I've been diving into this, the Title 4D, the Title 4E, following Mark Ludwig and Robert Garza and just what's going on. And it's like, this is a big problem.
Right. And going with the CPS, that's Title 4B. That's
Title
another
4B.
rabbit
I mean,
hole.
they've all got their hands in their pockets. I mean, I thought I saw somewhere where it's like they make 68 cents on the dollar for every dollar of child support that they collect. And I mean, my license has gotten suspended, I don't know how many times
Oh,
because I didn't pay my child support. And it's like, okay, that's dumb to begin with, number one, because you still want the money, right? And how the hell are
right.
you going to make any money if you can't go to work? How are you going to pick up your kids if you can't drive your car? So I don't know who came up with that idea to begin with. It's really dumb.
Yeah.
And like, I know they can't differentiate between who's a deadbeat dad or mom or whatever, and just doesn't want to pay and doesn't want the custody. But you look at half of these child support cases, and the other parent wanted to have equal sharing.
Hmm.
Like it wasn't said anywhere where we were like, I don't want my kid 50-50.
Right.
That's what child support's for. I mean, it's posted everywhere. I forget what the guy is, but it's, child support should be for an absent parent.
Mhm.
Like if the parent's not doesn't want to be in the picture, like they've made it known in court, I only want them 30% of the time. That's when child support should come into play,
Yeah.
to help carry the buffer between the difference in time. That's totally fair. But this like just making it an uneven custody sharing because they feel the kid's been in the one parent's custody for 6 months now, so it's they're in a routine, like that's
Right.
BS.
Right.
you know Kids adjust to whatever routine you put on them. You know what I mean?
Definitely. Because like in my case, we were 5 days on, 5 days off. And now my case was rigged, but the judge said, I don't like the idea of these kids bouncing back and forth between the houses. And I'm like,
Mhm.
we've done this for
Well,
10 years. Everyone's already adjusted.
yeah. But what are you supposed to do? When you're not together, that's what you do. They have to bounce. You know
And
what I
that's
mean?
not
Like,
really even, the 5 days on, 5 days off really isn't that bouncing because they've got continuity for 5 days.
yes.
They're still going to the same school district. We were sharing them. That's another podcast, but it all got messed
Yeah.
up.
I might suggest that though, 5 days on, 5 days off. That's not bad. If it goes that I'm still trying to get full custody. Right now, she's still living in the same place. I feel, and even her family, her sister and I, her sister. and her wife and I are still in communication. Baby mama stopped talking to them because they wouldn't stop talking to me. But the sister showed up to help remove her first daughter from her years
Mm.
ago. And they're Spanish. So it caused a lot of riff with the family. Everybody got mad at her for helping take away the daughter. So this time around, she's like, "Hey, I support you, but I can't show up to court for you or interfere, and it's whatever. I understand,
Mhm.
but it just goes to show, like, their own family recognizes this, but they will do nothing. So, like, I've got tons of friends, that see this stuff, and it's hard to get people to show up to court for you, because
Yes,
it's during the week, it's during the day, people got to take off work. I don't have any friends that live in this general area, so there's a commute that's and got to take place, and it's even though they support me 100%, it's also a big ask,
right.
like to be, hey, I need you to come show up to court and sit there for 2 hours with me, like
Mhm.
everybody empathizes, but unless you've really been through it, like you don't understand.
Right, right. People need court watchers as well.
I have been looking for that. I actually would love to have. I have seen. There's a lot of things that I need right now. I feel. I've reached out to just about every organization that can help fathers fighting for fathers, Children's Rights Council. There's a number of them that I've reached out to try and get assistance. Excuse me. And one of the things I have seen is a court monitor that makes sure that there's fairness being done in the courts. I don't know how they regulate that, who they go to if they see things not being done fairly, but
Yeah.
I have been looking for something like that, because so far the DOR judge. So obviously, baby mama filed for child support like when we were still together.
Uh-huh.
Last year, like one of the times I broke up with her, she went and filed for child support, not because she was going to need it, but because that was her way of, delving out a weapon. Um, so we would get back together. We were back and forth like 5 times. And so throughout that year, so there were times, we were together. So when she filed for child support, I had been still giving her money through Apple Pay. And I would put for our daughter, what her name, with the payment. But every now and again I would forget and I would send it after, or I would send it before in a separate text message.
Mhm.
So she took the amounts that I sent only with it in the payment and said that's what I had paid her. And then she claimed that she had had majority custody when we were doing 50-50 during dates when we were actually together, and submitted that to the Department of Revenue judge. Now, before my attorney got some mix up, she didn't show up to one of the hearings, didn't know that it was happening. So I'm there without my attorney. She's there without her attorney. And the DOR judge is like, hey, we want to move on with this case. Department of Revenue is there, and it's no offense, women, but it's all women. The
Mhm.
Department of Revenue judge is a woman too. And baby mama decides to speak up, and she says, well, his ex-wife has him in court because he's got two businesses that he's got all this money from, and she had a forensics accountant go through it, and they found $13,000 extra a month that he's making, which is untrue. They, th
Yeah.
th- they found nothing, by the way. This was months ago. Um, but she's telling this to the Department of Revenue judge. She's like, I had to move because he was harassing me. Now, I don't, they tell you to be quiet in court. So I'm trying not to interject and be like, well, that's a lie. You know what I mean? I don't want to look emotional, and I don't have my attorney. And so
Oh
I just don't
God.
say anything. I don't say anything. The judge schedules the next hearing. We show up. My attorney is now drilling baby mama. We're going through the payments to her right now. And
Mhm.
she's showing her hey, do you remember this amount? Do you have this amount? And she's like, oh, it would be like $300 that I
Mhm.
would send her. And she was like, oh, that was for a dinner or something that I paid for that he was paying me back because it didn't have
Oh,
my daughter's name in that payment. And so we're going payment by payment,
right.
with everything. And she's like, we've never gone to a $300 dinner, just to be clear.
Yeah,
And
right.
she never paid for anything, just to be clear. Um, and so my attorney got her to admit under oath some of these payments were for my daughter. At the end of the hearing, the judge credits her for these times that she claims that we weren't together. She claimed that we were doing 60/40 the whole time until the judges, the 2 months that she had her full time, which was her own fault because she filed the false allegations. But now she's getting child support for the 2 months of
Mhm.
having 100% custody in that time. And the judge didn't even credit me for the amounts that we got her to admit under oath that were given to her. And this is where I could see the defeat in my attorney. And we got off the video, and I kind of called her back, and she was just like, you know, she didn't know what to say. She just, I could totally hear it, and in the video I could see it. Like she felt defeated.
Oh,
And like now that's where I think she's at. I think she, and that's why I kind of feel like maybe I need somebody new, and it's not her fault. She's a good
yeah.
attorney. She's just, she either underestimated baby mama. She didn't have enough information. I didn't tell her what happened in that previous court date either, because I thought for sure the DOR judge would see the evidence
Hmm.
or want to hear what's going on. Why was there a motion to remove her custody? You know what I mean? Like, and my attorney is telling her these things, and no, she had already made up her mind, I think, from the court date prior.
Oh.
And and so now I'm going back in front of them because I forget what the term is, but I'm refuting the child support.
Mhm.
I'm refusing to pay it, and I'm like, because I want this fixed. I've
Right.
done this with my ex-wife. Like, I can't do another, years, like this. It's just, it's no way to live. But
No,
so
no.
there's that, there's that, and the DCF investigator, our family court judge, like I don't even know. I'm so like shocked that I'm dealing with this, and that the way that things are going. Like, I'm a very clean cut looking dude. Baby mom's got tattoos on her face and her neck and
Mhm.
piercings everywhere. You know what I mean? Like, if they're going, these are old school people. Usually they're somewhat judgy, and
Yeah,
stuff like
yeah,
that. I show up in a suit every time, and I'm thinking, okay, these guys are gonna kind of see through the bullshit. They must see this every day.
yeah,
They're
yeah.
gonna want to see the evidence. I don't see any evidence. She went in and claimed all these things, and it got bought just like that. It's gospel, and
Right,
and,
right.
and now I'm stuck.
Right. Whoever calls out the first lie will win.
That's who wins, and it's up to the other person with the burden of proof of evidence. But the
And
problem is getting that evidence in front of the judges.
and that's if the judge wants to look at the evidence.
That's if they want to look at it. They might not even look at it. And that's what's crazy, is that none of this is built on
The con
evidence or facts
or the Constitution.
with the Constitution. It's very unconstitutional. It very much so is. And I feel like my rights are violated. Like, I almost feel like either a woman in the 30s or 50s,
Yeah.
or an African American in the times when
Hmm.
we were racially acceptable. So it's like I now know what this feels like to be like a minority that's just
Uh-huh.
not getting justice the way that the law should be, because I'm a man. I never thought I would say anything like that.
Hmm.
And I know this stuff happens to women too. Like, I've talked to women, and you're right, whoever gets there first wins, and it's sometimes the guy gets there first.
Hmm.
um and so it happens to both, but in my situation, in this court, in this judge, it's a bias against men, 100%.
Right.
um
Well, he's
you
too
know
old. He should have been retired and let somebody else get in there and maybe have a different viewpoint for Pete's sake.
and I have, I've looked into filing a complaint with the judicial board, and calling bias on these judges. But I asked my attorney about it, and she didn't think it was a great idea, at least not right now, because the problem is number one, if it does happen, you're going to get another judge, and they're going to know that you filed a complaint against the previous judge, and they could be homeboys, and
Hmm.
they're going to be just thinking of that and rule in a way, because and not in your favor, because whatever. And the second thing is, if it doesn't get approved, you're still stuck in front of the same judge, and now he knows that you tried to throw him under the bus. Then what? So it's like legalized mafia.
Yeah.
They've got the public scared to get the right thing done.
And that's how it's rolling, and it's working to their advantage to put
Yeah,
people
oh, for
through
sure.
this.
For
And
sure.
yeah, this is why I'm glad I had you on this podcast to explain how this all unfolded and what's going on in your case. And I'm so sorry this is happening.
I appreciate it. I appreciate it. This person is she's very, very toxic. She was
Mhm.
granted her injunction based on those talking parents messages where I was berating her about the guy and because I was going on and on and on, the judge said technically it's harassing.
Mm.
Now, I have 100,000 messages where she's harassing me, even
Right.
with an injunction. She's texting me outside my door, telling me to open the door, calling me names and telling me to have her arrested. And, I'm telling her in the text message, we have injunctions. My neighbors will call the cops, and
Mhm.
I don't care, send me to jail. Of course, I don't, which is this is the problem with a lot
Uh-huh.
of guys. This happened with my ex-wife. She tried to towards the end of our marriage. We never had any domestic issues ever, but
Hmm.
towards the end, we got into a fight. She called the cops. Um, Tried to tell him. She told him that I was beating her up, and she had bruises on her wrists,
Hmm.
which were from me trying to pull her off. Luckily, I left because we live in a county that they're taking somebody to jail on a
Right.
domestic. So I left the county, and I knew what I did and what I didn't do. Cops called me. I'm at my mom's house, and again, this, something my mom shouldn't have gotten involved with, but the cops like, hey, I just want your side of the story. And I'm like, okay. So I tell him my side of the story. I said, look, I took her phone, I bought it. Um, I was mad at, I found out she was, kind of cheating on me or whatever. We were kind of out on the outs anyways, but I said we got into an argument, and I was trying to leave, and she wouldn't let me leave. She was punching me, scratching at me, and calling for help while she's hitting me because we were outside in the driveway. It's a brand new neighborhood. We don't know any of our neighbors yet.
Oh,
Well,
man.
I tell the cop this, and he's like, man, he's like, she was really pushing for us to arrest you. He's like, but I'm going to tell you that your story actually corroborates with what when your neighbors saw and told us. This woman across the street,
Well, thank God.
didn't know who she was. I did thank her afterwards, but she called the cop over and she said, hey, look, I've been through this stuff before. He's not here to defend himself. I want to tell you what I saw. And this is all in the report. And she tells him, he was trying to leave. I had my hands up the whole time because I wanted people to see my hands. You know
Right,
what I mean?
right.
I knew she was, punching me and hitting me and calling for help. So I'm like, I got my hands up and I'm just trying to get to my car. And she would not let me into my car. And so the cop's like, this is what your neighbor saw. He's like, she's not allowed to stop you from leaving a domestic. That's actually against the law.
Hmm.
And I'm going to talk to my sergeant and see what he wants to do. So he calls me back, and I'm on speakerphone, and my mom's standing there. And he's like, my sergeant's recommending that you have her arrested, that you press charges. And my mom's standing there shaking her head, no,
Oh,
and I'm
man.
like, and so I'm like, okay. I'm like, you know what? I don't want to throw my baby mom or my son's mother in jail. Like
Mhm.
I have that kind of heart. But 2 days later, she goes to the courthouse. She files for an injunction using the same story, claiming again that I beat her up and all that. We get in front of the judge, and she's been with the attorney guy for a while. And the judge
Mhm.
was this woman, and she let me have it right away. Why did you take her phone? And I'm like, but she was hitting me. And she's like, well, you shouldn't have taken her phone. And I was like, so what you're telling me is that I'm getting mad now, and I don't have an attorney to calm me down. So I'm like, so what you're telling me is that it's okay for someone to hit someone if they take their phone. That's okay. And she's like, well, the cops don't know everything, and you shouldn't have taken her phone. So she got granted this injunction. I got the police report. I walk into this thing, I'm thinking I got a smoking gun,
Right,
and
right.
it's just like wah wah. And the judge is
Oh,
like, she didn't want to look at the police report. She just granted the injunction. And I was like, wow. So that was my first experience with that. But then,
wow.
same thing here with baby mama, she did basically the same thing. She claimed these things happened. There's no evidence to show that these things did happen. In fact, there's more evidence to, show that she is retaliatory. She has
Mhm.
that in her nature, that she had good reason to make up an accusation like that. I mean, she's just been served with a motion to remove her custody. So
Wow.
yeah, it's a big mess in in the way these things work here.
Yeah, I'd like to have you back on for an update.
Sure.
Because,
Sure.
and how can people reach you if they have any questions?
They can reach you, or I am looking for as much help as I can get. So if anybody is listening to this and they think that there is something they can do to help me out, I would greatly appreciate it. I'm not a rich guy. I'm probably about 30 grand in right now on everything so far in the last year and a half, and we've got two cases going to trial, and so that's going to cause for extra money again. So if there's any kind of service or services that anybody knows that can help, I would definitely appreciate it. You can reach me by email. My email's my name, Nick, Nick, at imtslllc.com.
Well, thank you so much, but don't jump off, okay?
Yeah, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Sure. Slam the Gavel is a podcast to help the public understand what really goes on in these courtrooms. I'm your host, Maryann Petri. You can find me on Spotify, YouTube. Please like and subscribe, Apple, iTunes, iHeartRadio, Google, and other platforms I don't know about. Again, feel free to buy me a coffee, help keep this podcast going. Thank you, Nick. I totally appreciate you, Nick Andersen, for speaking out. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Thank you.